Most people think they know what hypnosis is. They picture a swinging watch, a spiraling pattern, a voice counting backward, a subject collapsing into sleep, then waking up to cluck like a chicken. The image didn't come from science. It came from theater, from stage tricks, from movies, from spectacle designed to entertain, not to explain. And because of that, hypnosis has become one of the most misunderstood psychological phenomena in modern culture. Some people dismiss it completely, others fear it. Very few actually understand it. But here's the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. Hypnosis is not about losing control. It's about how your mind already gives control away. And once you understand that, you start to see it everywhere. The illusion of mind control. Let's start by tearing down the biggest myth. Hypnosis is not mind control. No one can force you to do something that violently contradicts your core values. You won't suddenly confess secrets, you won't become a puppet, you won't be taken over. That version of hypnosis exists mostly because it's profitable to scare people. But dismissing hypnosis as fake is just as inaccurate, because while hypnosis isn't control, it is influence. And influence, when applied to the right mental conditions, can be extraordinarily powerful. Hypnosis works not by overpowering your will, but by redirecting your attention. That distinction matters, because attention is the gateway to perception, and perception is reality. What hypnosis actually is. At its core, hypnosis is a state of focused attention combined with reduced peripheral awareness. That sounds technical, but it's simpler than it seems. When you're hypnotized, your mind isn't asleep, it's selective. You become deeply absorbed in one stream of experience while everything else fades into the background. You've experienced this before, many times, without calling it hypnosis. Think about when you're driving for 20 minutes and barely remember the trip. How about when you get lost in a movie and forget you're in a room? What about scrolling for an hour without noticing time pass? Even zoning out while someone talks, or falling into a creative flow where everything else disappears. Those are all altered states of attention. Hypnosis lives on that same spectrum. The difference is intention. Hypnosis deliberately guides attention inward and narrows awareness until suggestion becomes easier to accept. Not because your mind is weak, but because your mind is efficient. Your brain was built to enter trance. Here's something rarely said plainly. The human brain evolved to enter trance states. Long before therapy rooms and stage shows, altered attention served survival. Hunters needed intense focus, storytellers needed immersion. Rituals relied on rhythm and repetition. Trauma demanded dissociation. Trance wasn't a glitch, it was an adaptation. Modern neuroscience supports this. During hypnotic states, activity decreases in parts of the brain responsible for self-monitoring and critical evaluation, especially regions of the default mode network. At the same time, areas linked to attention, imagination, and sensory processing become more active. What does that mean in human terms? It means the internal narrator quiets down. The part of you that constantly questions, analyzes, and interrupts softens. And when that happens, experience becomes more vivid. Thoughts feel more real. Images feel more immersive. Suggestions feel more believable. Not because they bypass logic, but because logic temporarily steps aside. Hypnosis isn't sleep, it's selective awareness. One of the biggest misconceptions is that hypnosis is sleep. It isn't. In fact, people under hypnosis are often more alert in specific ways. Your body may relax, your eyes may close, your breathing may slow, but your awareness sharpens in a narrow direction. Think of it like a spotlight. Normal consciousness is like a floodlight. Wide, scattered, noisy. Hypnosis is a laser. Focus, narrow, intense. And that intensity is what makes suggestion more powerful. When attention narrows, resistance weakens. Not because you're powerless, but because your mind prioritizes coherence over contradiction. Why some people think hypnosis doesn't work on them. You've probably heard people say, "I can't be hypnotized." Sometimes that's true, but often what they really mean is, "I don't like letting go of control." People who expect hypnosis to feel dramatic often miss it when it happens quietly. They're waiting for unconsciousness, but hypnosis feels ordinary, subtle, like imagination with weight, like listening deeply, like agreeing to follow a thought. And here's the paradox. The harder you try to resist hypnosis, the more aware you become of your own mental control mechanism. You start monitoring yourself, judging responses, correcting reactions. That self-surveillance blocks absorption, not because you're smarter, but because you're guarded. The real divide. Absorption versus control. Researchers have found that susceptibility to hypnosis varies widely, but not for the reasons people expect. It's not intelligence, it's not education, it's not gullibility. The strongest predictor is something called absorption. Absorption is the ability to become deeply immersed in experience. People high in absorption get lost in books or films, have vivid imaginations, feel emotions intensely, daydream easily, enter flow states, visualize clearly, or experience music physically. These people aren't weak-minded, they're perceptually open. They allow experiences to move through them instead of constantly filtering them. That openness is what hypnosis works with. The role of expectation. Expectation is one of the most powerful forces in the human mind. If you expect something to work, your brain begins preparing for it to work. This is the foundation of the placebo effect, and hypnosis uses the same mechanism, consciously or unconsciously. When someone believes hypnosis is powerful, mysterious, or transformative, their brain aligns with that belief. Neural pathways prime themselves, attention sharpens, resistance lowers, meaning increases. That doesn't mean hypnosis is fake, it means belief is biologically active. Your expectations change how your brain processes reality, and that alone should unsettle you a little, because expectations don't just affect hypnosis, they can affect pain, confidence, performance, memory, trust, and persuasion. Why stage hypnosis confuses everything. Stage hypnosis has done real damage to public understanding, not because it's fake, but because it's selective. Stage hypnotists carefully choose participants who already show high suggestibility. They watch body language, responsiveness, compliance cues. They don't hypnotize everyone. They curate the most responsive individuals. Then they amplify the effect with social pressure. Because once someone is on a stage, surrounded by an audience, compliance skyrockets. People don't want to break the spell. They don't want to disappoint. They don't want to look foolish. Social psychology takes over. Suddenly hypnosis looks like magic. But what you're really seeing is suggestibility, expectation, social compliance, performance, attention narrowing, all layered together. The quiet truth no one tells you. Here's the part most people don't like to hear. You don't enter hypnosis, you slide into it, you drift, you consent, often without noticing, and you do it every day. When you scroll, when you binge, when you emotionally sync with a story, when you trust a confident voice, when you absorb a narrative without questioning it. Hypnosis isn't an event, it's a mode, and modern life constantly nudges you into it. Why this matters. Understanding hypnosis isn't about learning a trick, it's about understanding how influence actually works. Because once you recognize that hypnosis is just focused attention plus reduced resistance, you start seeing it everywhere. In advertising, in politics, relationships, in religion, therapy, social media, in persuasion itself. You start realizing something unsettling. You don't need to be hypnotized to be influenced. You only need to be human. This isn't meant to scare you, it's meant to wake you up. Hypnosis doesn't steal your will, but it does reveal how easily attention can be guided, and how rarely we notice when it happens. The danger isn't hypnosis, the danger is believing you're immune, because the people who think they can't be influenced are often the ones least aware of when they are. Hypnosis, when stripped of its myths and theatrics, turns out to not be a weapon at all. It's a mirror. A way of seeing how the human mind already works when focus narrows, when resistance softens, when meaning quietly takes root. It doesn't take control from you, it reveals where control already flows. And that realization can be uncomfortable, because the mind was never meant to be a locked vault. It's a filter, constantly sorting, prioritizing, and interpreting reality. Every second, your attention decides what matters and what fades away. That filtering process is what allows you to function, but it's also where influence lives. The truth is, influence doesn't announce itself. It doesn't knock. It doesn't demand permission. It slips in through familiarity, repetition, emotion, and trust. Through tone of voice, through rhythm, through story, through the quiet assumptions you stop questioning because they feel familiar. Hypnosis simply exposes that mechanism. It shows us how easily attention can be guided. Not through force, but through agreement, through focus, through expectation, through belief. And once you understand that, the world starts to look different. You begin to notice how often your attention is being shaped for you, by algorithms designed to keep you scrolling, by narratives that reward outrage or certainty, by voices that sound confident enough to feel true, by environments designed to pull your focus in predictable directions. None of this requires malice. but it all carries influence. And influence, when unseen, becomes power. The uncomfortable realization is this: whoever controls your attention shapes your reality. What you notice, what you fear, what you desire, what you dismiss, what feels important, what feels invisible. That doesn't mean you're powerless. It means awareness is everything. Awareness doesn't eliminate influence, it interrupts it. It creates a pause, a moment of distance between stimulus and belief, between suggestion and acceptance, between reaction and choice. That pause is where autonomy lives. Hypnosis, in its truest sense, teaches us something paradoxical. The more honestly you understand how suggestible the mind can be, the less easily it's manipulated. Not because you build walls, but because you learn to observe your own attention with clarity. You start asking better questions. Why did that idea feel convincing? Why did that message linger? Why did that emotion arrive so suddenly? Who benefits from my focus right now? And in asking those questions, you reclaim something quiet but powerful: agency. So maybe the real value of understanding hypnosis isn't learning how to influence others at all. Maybe it's learning how to notice when influence is happening to you. Because the real question was never whether hypnosis works. The real question is this: who have you already allowed to shape your thoughts without realizing it? You don't need to be hypnotized to be influenced. You just need to start noticing who's guiding your attention. If you want to learn how influence actually works in psychology, power, manipulation, and control, subscribe now, because once you see the patterns, you can't unsee them.